The families of two Idaho murder victims are speaking out just one day before the suspect is due back in court. They're describing how they learned of the arrest and what happened when they read the evidence against the suspect. This as we learn new details about what police say he did that helped link him to the crime. Mola Lengi has the latest.
As the suspect accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students prepares to head back to court, new details emerging about Bryan Kohberger's actions before his arrest. ABC News learning from a law enforcement source that federal investigators observed him in Pennsylvania around 4 a.m. as he discarded garbage in his neighbor's trash bin just days before his arrest. Trash ending up being key in the case. Police linking Kohberger to the murders by collecting his father's DNA from trash outside the family home and matching that to DNA they say they discovered on the button snap of a knife sheath that was on the bed next to the body of victim Madison Mogen.
If I had one or two words to describe Maddie Mae, it would be just an angel, and that she just made me proud.
Ben Mogen speaking about his daughter Madison to ABC News and describing the moment law enforcement told him they'd made an arrest in the case.
And he said, "Ben, this is the day that we've been waiting for."
Ben also describing his emotions while reading the evidence law enforcement say they had gathered against Kohberger.
I broke down, and I just cried. I could only take so much of that, and I cried. I still haven't read the rest of it.
The police affidavit claiming investigators believe the 4 college students were killed between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. They say one of the surviving roommates was awake at the time of the murders and told police she witnessed the intruder, seeing a masked man coming toward her before he walked out through a sliding glass door, the roommate then locking her door. Police say later that morning, the 2 surviving roommates called friends to the house because they thought one of the victims had simply passed out and wasn't waking up. The 911 call finally coming around noon. Officials say the 2 surviving roommates are not suspects. Kaylee Gonsalves' sister, Olivia, saying Kaylee and Madison did everything right that night.
They went out together. They called for a ride. They went to a known establishment. They did everything you would want your daughter or your sister to do in that situation. You're supposed to grow up together. That's your God-given best friend. And so we're left with not only missing them and exactly who they were, but wondering who they were going to become.
On the University of Idaho campus, classes began this week with heightened security. Meanwhile, Kohberger, who was extradited back to Idaho last week, is scheduled to be in court tomorrow morning. Diane.
All right, Mola Lengi, thank you. And ABC News legal contributor and host of the Law and Crime Network, Brian Buckmeyer, joins me live now for more on this. Brian, investigators say they observed the suspect for days, but they didn't arrest him, they say, until they matched his DNA from the trash to the knife sheath found at the crime scene. How crucial will that be to this case?
I think it's very crucial, Diane, for 2 reasons. One, it strengthens the legitimacy of the arrest. They waited until they got that crucial piece of evidence before moving in. But the other part, maybe the more important part, is that they were waiting for him to make more mistakes. We found out about him throwing trash in his neighbor's trash receptacle, about the DNA. They're probably waiting to see if he slipped something more, to see what more evidence they can collect before he knows that police are onto him.
Now, Brian, the suspect will be back in court tomorrow. He hasn't offered a plea yet in this case. Do you expect that to happen tomorrow, and could the defense strike a plea deal?
I think we will hear a plea. Probably the biggest reason why we didn't hear a plea on the first appearance is because Ann Taylor, the public defender assigned to him, is not from the same county. We know that she's already been to the scene of the murders, and she's been doing her own investigation, as any defense attorney will. But while I think there's going to be a plea, I don't think it's going to be a plea of guilt. I don't think the prosecutor is going to give anything that he's willing to take at this point, just because there's so much evidence out there that hasn't been turned over to the defense as yet. I think this is going to be a not guilty plea, just out of a procedural stance, and then they would move forward to evidence collection, motions, and arguments like that.
Now, Brian, law enforcement has yet to find any connection between the suspect and the victims. Does that pose a challenge for the prosecution?
Yes and no. I mean, every prosecutor will tell you that they do not need to prove a motive to prove their case. But many jurors, many internet sleuths, many people who are following this crime want to know the why. The why isn't necessary to convicting anyone, whether you're talking about Bryan Kohberger or any criminal defendant, but it does help because you don't want a jury sitting in this case, whether it goes to trial at the end of this year or maybe early next year, thinking, but why? What was the connection? Why would he just randomly do this? The unfortunate reality is there might just be a person that just does this for the sheer pleasure of harming someone else. So trying to find a why beyond that might be difficult, but it is definitely not necessary.
All right, Bryan Buckmeyer, we appreciate the analysis as always. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.